In 2008, the greatest financial system in human history collapsed. Millions lost their homes. Banks evaporated overnight. Retirement savings gone. Entire livelihoods ash. And on the top floors of Wall Street's most powerful towers, some men were still drinking champagne. This is not a story about the people who predicted the crash. This is the story of the people who built it and how almost every single one of them got away with it. To understand the crime, you need to understand the machine. Between 2003 and 2007, American banks were handing out mortgages like candy to people with no jobs, no income, no assets. It didn't matter. Sign here, take the house, move in, because the banks didn't intend to hold those loans. They packaged them. Thousands of these rotting mortgages were bundled together into a single financial product called a CDO, a collateralized debt obligation, a box filled with bad debt, a bomb with a bow on it. And then they sold it to the world. But there was a problem. For the world to buy it, someone had to certify that the box was safe. That job belonged to the rating agencies: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, the three most trusted names in global finance. Their single purpose was to look inside the box, see what's really in it, and tell the truth. Here's what actually happened. CDO managers, the men building these bombs, would walk into the rating agencies and say, "Give us a 8AA rating, AAA, the highest possible grade, the same rating as U.S. Treasury bonds, the same rating as the full faith and credit of the United States government." The agencies knew what was inside. They knew it wasn't 8AAA. They knew it was subprime garbage dressed in a designer suit. But here was the trap. If one agency said no, the CDO manager simply walked across the street to a competitor, and that competitor lost the fee. So no one said no. The rating agencies stamped AAA on boxes of financial poison and sent them out into the world's pension funds, insurance companies, and retirement accounts. This wasn't corruption in a dark room. This was corruption in broad daylight, in conference rooms, in quarterly earnings calls, with lawyers present. Now let's talk about the men. Wing Chow, a CDO manager who sat at the center of this machine. He knew exactly what these products contained. He knew who would buy them and who would be destroyed when they failed. The ordinary investor, the pension fund, the retired school teacher. He built the bombs anyway. He sold the bombs anyway. When 2008 arrived and the whole structure collapsed, Wing Chow faced no criminal charges, no prison, no accountability. The system that prosecuted drug dealers and petty thieves had nothing to say to the men who burned down the global economy. Because the system hadn't just tolerated these men, the system had created them. Bill Miller. For 15 consecutive years, Bill Miller had beaten the S&P 500 every single year. No one in history had done it for that long. Wall Street called him a genius. Financial magazines put him on their covers. His fund, Legg Mason, was a monument to his intellect. And then 2008 came. Miller made a decision. Miller made a decision that revealed something terrifying. Even the smartest men on Wall Street had no idea what was about to happen. He bought Bear Stearns days before it collapsed. He bought Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, government mortgage giants teetering on the edge. He kept buying as everything fell, convinced the market would recover. It didn't. His investors lost 77% of their money. Not 10%, not 30%, 77%. 15 years of genius, erased in 12 months. And Bill Miller? He collected his salary. He collected his bonus. He quietly retired from public life. No charges, no consequences, just a reputation with a hole through its heart. But there is one story that stands above all the rest. One loss so staggering it reads like fiction. Howard Hubler, a trader at Morgan Stanley. And by the mid-2000s, one of the most confident men on Wall Street. Here's the thing about Howard Hubler. He wasn't stupid. He actually saw part of the crisis coming. He understood that subprime mortgages were a disaster waiting to happen. So he made a bet against them, a short position that would pay off when they failed. In that, he was right. But then he made a second bet. And this one cost him everything. Hubler believed that while subprime mortgages would collapse, higher-grade mortgage bonds would hold steady. After all, they were built from better loans, more creditworthy borrowers, safer collateral. He was so confident in this belief that he took on an enormous long position in these so-called high-grade bond. The arrogance was extraordinary, because what Hubler didn't understand, what almost no one on Wall Street understood, is that the entire mortgage market was contaminated. High-grade, low-grade, AAA-rated. All of it was rotten. The rating agencies had stamped safe on all of it, and all of it was built on the same lie. When the crash came in 2007, the high-grade bonds Hubler was holding didn't hold steady. They collapsed. just like everything else. Howard Hubler's loss at Morgan Stanley was $9.4 billion, $9.4 billion, the single largest trading loss by one individual in the history of finance, more than Morgan Stanley's entire profit for that year. And Howard Hubler? He resigned. He had already collected his bonuses. No handcuffs, no courtroom, no consequences. He simply left. Here is the question that should keep you up at night. These men were not fools. They were not careless amateurs. These were graduates of Harvard, Wharton, MIT, men who managed billions of dollars every single day, men who understood financial instruments more deeply than almost anyone alive. So how did they get it so catastrophically wrong? No, one word: incentives. On Wall Street, your bonus is paid on this year's profits. The consequences, if there are any, arrive years later. By then, you're gone. Your money is in your account. Your name is on a donation to a university building. Someone else will deal with the wreckage. This is the architecture of the catastrophe. It was never one rogue trader, one corrupt manager, one bad bank. It was a system, built from top to bottom, that rewarded short-term greed and punished long-term caution. The men who told the truth were sidelined. The men who played the game got rich, until the game ended. While Wing Chao was selling CDOs, while Howard Hubler was betting billions on a lie, while the rating agencies were stamping AAA on financial weapons of mass destruction, a small group of outsiders was watching. Michael Burry, Steve Eisman, Greg Lippmann. These were not the kings of Wall Street. They were the doubters, the eccentrics, the ones who read the actual loan files, who looked at the actual data, who asked the questions no one else wanted answered, and what they found disgusted them. They bet against the entire machine. They were mocked. Their investors threatened to pull out. Their employers tried to shut them down, and in 2008, when the machine finally broke, they became billionaires. The difference between them and Howard Hubler wasn't intelligence. It was humility. Hubler was certain he understood the world. Burry was terrified he was wrong, but the data said otherwise, and he followed the data. Arrogance versus honesty. Wall Street chose arrogance. The crisis ended. The headlines faded. The bailouts came and went. And the system survived. Largely unchanged. The same rating agencies still rate the same products. The same bonus structures still incentivize the same short-term greed. New financial instruments, new names, same DNA are being packaged and sold right now. Because when no one goes to prison, no one learns a lesson. Wing Chao walked free. Bill Miller retired. Howard Hubler disappeared into private life with his bonuses intact. The rating agencies paid fines, small ones, and went back to work. The people who paid the real price? The retired couple who lost their savings, the young family who lost their home, the factory worker whose pension evaporated. They had no bonuses to fall back on. They had nothing. This was the 2008 financial crisis, not as a market event, not as an economic statistic, but as a human crime, committed by brilliant men, enabled by a corrupt system, and never truly punished. History buried it. We brought it back.